Okay, hello everyone. What you're looking at here is my original motorbike build. Obviously there's something missing here if you watched my previous video, and that is the motor. I originally had wanted to take and put the motor on my mountain bike, but it wouldn't fit in that space in the frame. So I purchased this fixie or fixed sprocket bike from Walmart.com for about 80 bucks, and I used this bike instead. I was really disappointed, but then throughout the last few months, and because it's getting colder out, I started looking back to the bigger bike, and I decided I would give it a try and see if there wasn't some way that I could actually get it to work. I knew it was going to take some fabrication and maybe a little luck. Now what you're looking at is the back tire of the fixie bike. I just wanted to show you this because there's the fixed gear right there, and you'll notice that the back axle extends out more on the left hand side, which was to solve the problem of the chain rubbing against the fork. What you're looking at here is a front view of the mountain bike. That little thing there is not a light. Actually, it's the reflector, the flash from the flash bulb on the camera reflecting off of it. But anyway, this is the mountain bike, and one interesting thing here, what you're looking at now is the gear changer for the forward gears. This is not native for this bike. As a matter of fact, this is one from a bike that I had in the basement from the mid 90s. As a matter of fact, the bike is so rusted it's not even funny. But while I was doing this build, at some point the front gears assembly levers just stopped working. So I figured, hey, simplicity is best. So I pulled that one off the bike from the basement and brought it up here to use here, and it works perfectly. What you're looking at right now is the throttle assembly, which is on the mountain bike, as well as the front brake. Now, this front brake is actually there just for show. I could have just taken it off and it would have, it would have worked the same as it works now. And the reason for this is because this bike, when purchased, had only disc brakes. As a matter of fact, it currently only has a disc brake, the front brake. So currently this bike only has one brake, and it's the front brake. And I know, people are going to go, oh my God, that's dangerous. Well, the fact of the matter is it would take too much modifications to add a back brake, a classic back brake. There's the front disc brake right there. And this is what the original front brake, I'm sorry, gear change assembly looked like. There's another view. It's more sleek, it's more, modern, if you will. It's funny because when the other one, when the forward one came apart, or wasn't working, I took it apart and I was looking inside of it and I was like, my God, this is like a watch, for crying out loud. Who the hell designed this? Rocket scientists? The other one is so simplistic. Anyway, moving on. What you're looking at now is the forward motor mount assembly. I actually had to go out and purchase two much longer bolts along with corresponding nuts, as well as 10 washers. There's 5 and 5 on either side of that, in order to make up for the length that I needed for the bolts and the spacing to make this project work. Next, what you're seeing is another image just behind the bolts right here. You can see where I actually had to cut into the motor mount so that it would fit around the frame. Without that simple cut, it wouldn't work. And yes, it took me months to figure this out because, well, I'm not an engineer and I'm not mechanically inclined. So I'm sure that a lot of you are probably laughing at me right now. I only threw this picture in here only to show that uh, that pedal actually rubs against that motor casing uh, because I don't have the extenders on it. They're still on the fixed bike. What you're looking at now is the upper sprocket on the motor, and I had no problems at all on this build lining it up. I had some problems on the fixie bike. Also, I had a problem down here with the fixie bike where which is why I had to have an axle, a longer axle, which extended out to the left-hand side, was because it kept rubbing, the chain kept rubbing against the forks. As a matter of fact, it rubbed quite a big dip into the fork. This one had no problems like that. What you're looking at now is the filter. I had to take the black backing off of the filter, the cover, in order to again get this motor to fit. I also had to cut a slight U-shaped hole at the bottom of the filter casing in order to make it fit as well. So that's what I had to do there. What you're looking at now is the large sprocket for the chain that goes to the motor, and the bolts that go through that. That goes basically through the back spokes, as you can see here. You can see the bolts on the inside, and that's basically how that works. And I did have some wobble with the chain, and I still do have a little wobble, although everything does function perfectly well. This image, I'm basically showing you the gears. All of the gears actually work, so you could cut the engine off this motor. I mean, you could turn it off, and you can then pedal the bike and move through all of your gears. I wanted to show this image only because that little gray piece at the top is the choke. It had another piece on top of it, which I had to saw off of it in order so I could turn it on and turn it off. But again, just another small modification. In this image, I just wanted to show you the band that I had to actually put on there. There was a cable band underneath, and I had to cut that off so that the motor would fit. You can see just under here, just between that band and the gas tank, another cable band. That's what the original one looked like, but I had to put another band there. Now, as far as the gas tank went, because this bike is so beefy, because the tubes on this, the frame is so thick, I wasn't sure if I was going to have a problem getting this tank on there. But as you can see, I got it on there without a problem. You can see underneath the bolts that come out, they are actually built onto the tank itself. So if this didn't work, I'd have had to come up with some other scheme to get it to work. But as you can see, they do clear, and I got it in there. This is just a far shot of the motor on the bike in the frame. I should mention that I noticed afterwards, actually while I was making this video, that in order to replace the oil, to put more oil into this thing, I'm actually going to have to dismount the motor, unscrew the cap, put the oil in, and then reverse everything. But it's a minor thing because you don't have to change the oil all the time. Here's a driver's side or rider's side perspective of the bike. And what you see, that little gray thing up there that you see on the upper right hand side, is actually my GPS. And there's my reflector, and just above that it's a little red flashing light that I purchased, which was part of a set. It has a rear flashing light and a forward high beam, low beam, and flashing light that I put on the front of the bike. Okay, so that's about it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped you out a little bit in, if nothing more than inspiring you and letting you know that this kind of build can be done. It can be done on even a bike that not necessarily was designed for it. Now understand one thing before I go. When I called these guys after I tried to get the motor originally on this bike and described the bike, they said nope, not possible, never going to happen, blah blah blah. Of course, they weren't talking about fabricating the motor mounts and all of that type of stuff. One other thing I want to say, in order to fabricate the motor mounts and all of that, I used a Sawzall because this is heavy duty steel that you're cutting into, and a Dremel isn't going to cut it ever, not on its best day, unless they invented some new Dremel since the last time I purchased one. So a Sawzall with a steel or a metal cutting blade, not a wood cutting blade, but a Sawzall with a metal cutting blade will definitely allow you to do it. Just make sure you make your cuts properly and take all your safety precautions. There is one other thing I wanted to mention that I just realized I didn't mention. On the motor mount, if you buy this kit, there are 4 bolts, two on each side, forward and aft, that connect the silver part. There's a silver part of the motor mount that you connect directly to the engine itself, to the motor itself. Then you take these two for the front and back parts of your frame. You take these 2 black pieces, which basically are tapered so that they fit around the poles, going down on the front and back of your frame. And this metal part with the motor attached drops onto those, and then there's 2 bolts, 2 on each side, that attach that to the plate, to the black tapered parts. I just wanted to point out something, that the slits that those 4 bolts go into, okay, if your frame is not allowing the motor to sink down far enough, and you can't, and the bolts are as far to the right or to the left of those slits that they fit in, you can take your Sawzall, again with the metal cutting blade, slide it in there. Again, first, make sure that obviously that the gray plate is not attached to the engine, obviously to the motor. You don't want that. Put it in a vice grip or something like that. Then you can actually take your Sawzall, slide it into those slits and cut down. Then take a pair of vice grips and then bend the metal back and forth. It'll snap it, and now you've just made your slits longer. Then reattach the gray plate to the motor. Then reattach that to the black tapered pieces. I just wanted to point that out. If you get the kit, you'll see what I'm talking about. I don't, I really can't describe it anymore now. But if you get the kit and you try to put it on, you're then going to hear the end of this and go, oh, that's what he was talking about. Couldn't make heads or tails of it when he was saying it because it didn't make any sense. But now I see what he's talking about, because that was one of the big problems that I had. I needed the motor to drop far enough down into the frame for the top to clear. I already told you that little gray piece that opens and closes the choke, I had to cut the top of that off, and that was no harm, no foul. It didn't matter. I didn't need a little tab on the top to make it easier. You can just flick it with your finger from the bottom. But that, just having that little bit of clearance for the motor to drop down really helped. Of course, you still have to make those cuts to that same plate on the front and the back as well, as I showed you. But yeah, anyway, you can cut those slits, and that'll give you a little shimmy room there. That's it.